Hi. My life was sailing along perfectly. I had raised my children, I'm happily married, life was great, and then all of a sudden, one night, it was like my whole life was turned upside down. And what had happened? I entered menopause. Now the thing about menopause is that women of the preceding generations never talked to us about it. At least they haven't until now. And I think it's very important that we start talking about this because it's a natural passage that every single woman is going to go through, and so are men. Here's the thing. Women lose 90% of their hormones, 90% over a 2-year period. That's why it's so in our face. Now your husbands lose their hormones too, but over a 10 to 12-year period, which is why they do movies called Grumpy Old Men. And what happens with men is that it's a gradual loss of vitality, a gradual loss of executive capabilities. Sex is the last thing to go. It's losing the zest for life, the vibration of living. So all of a sudden, my happy life turned into a life I didn't even recognize. I didn't know who I was or how I fit in anymore. I call it the 7 dwarfs of menopause. Itchy, bitchy, sleepy, weepy, bloated, forgetful, and all dried up. And every single one of those things happened to me. The first thing that happened is I got an itch on my body that I could have scratched my skin off. It was the most uncomfortable thing, and it wouldn't stop. It was night, it was day. Creams would stop it for a while, but it was overtaking my life. I didn't know what it was. No dermatologist knew what it was. Then the next thing that happened was I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up, I'd go to sleep for 15 minutes, and all of a sudden I'd be wide awake and sweating like crazy. The bed would be wet, my night clothes would be wet. I'd dry myself off, I'd go back to sleep, and then 15 minutes later I'd wake up again. It's a horrible syndrome. By the morning, you haven't slept at all. You all know this syndrome. Then I couldn't hold a thought. That's forgetful. Then I started getting bloated all the time. That's bloated. And then the big unmentionable. The sex symbol lost her sex drive. Now, do I love talking about this? No. But the reason I'm talking about it is that I have figured out through hours, hundreds of hours of research, from going to doctor to doctor to doctor, to find out how to make this passage of menopause an enjoyable one. And I have discovered it. It is bioidentical hormones. The problem is there are not many doctors out there that understand this passage, because up until now we women never lived much beyond the entering menopause. We are the first generation that is going to live to the other side of it. And here's the big thing. We're going to live to be 90 and 100 years old, whether we should or not. Technology is going to keep us alive. The medical community has figured out how to keep us alive till 90 and 100, but they haven't thought about the quality of life. I don't know about you, but I don't want those last extra 20 to 25 years that they're going to give us to be with tubes up my nose and sitting in a wheelchair and not being able to remember anything, or having a stroke, or having type 2 diabetes, or high blood pressure, or heart attacks, or cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancers, and all the other cancers. What I found by going from doctor to doctor and finding the doctors that understand bioidentical natural hormones, it's that by replacing the hormones lost in the aging process, and that's the new thinking, not just taking away symptoms, but replacing the hormones you've lost in the aging process is your best defense against the diseases of aging. For someone who has no idea how hormone replacement therapy works, I want to explain to you how I have found this to work for me. And again, I never give advice. I'm telling you what I'm doing, and maybe when you read my book, The Sexy Years, or listen to this video, that you will want what I have. And I will tell you, this passage for me, now that I've got it figured out, is the best so far. It's better than my 20s. It's better than my 30s, 40s. I'm in my 50s. It is glorious. Here's how it works. We have major hormones and we have minor hormones. Your major hormones are your adrenals, cortisol, insulin, and others. But these are your 3 most important major hormones. The minor hormones are estrogen, or estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and HGH, human growth hormone. You go to a qualified endocrinologist or a gynecologist or a doctor, and this isn't the important part, who has chosen to make Bioidentical natural hormone replacement therapy, their specialty. If you ask your doctor if this is their specialty, if they say no, then you need to go find another doctor. If there is no doctor in your neighborhood or in your city or in your state that understands this, look up the doctors in my book and fly, drive, get to them however you can, because there aren't a lot of doctors in this country who are doing it, but those who do are so cutting edge, and they will make such a difference in your life that you will wonder why you didn't run immediately. I punished myself for the several months that I was going through the torture, and I think menopause can be a true time of suffering. It's also a time of life when marriages break up. And that was one of the reasons that I wrote this book. I thought, why do middle-aged men leave their middle-aged wives? We look great now. We look better now at middle age than any woman has in the history of women, because we eat right, we take care of ourselves. But this passage throws it all off. And the reason men leave us is because we behave so badly during this passage, because our hormones are out of whack, because we've lost 90% of our life-giving, nutrient-restoring hormones over a 2-year period. It is a difficult passage unless you understand it. Here's how it works. Once you've found a doctor who has chosen to specialize in natural bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, then what they do is they take your blood work, they look where your levels are. When I first had my blood work done, my levels were at 0. That's why the quality of my life had changed so much. I really thought, this is not worth it. What my doctor did was start gradually replacing with bioidentical hormones, which are an exact replica of what your body makes, an exact. It's synthesized in a lab from soy and yam and plant extracts, but it is synthesized into an exact replica of what your body makes, as opposed to the synthetic hormones that are out there that aren't really hormones at all, that simply remove the symptoms, some of them, hot flashes, night sweats, a little bit of the short-term memory loss is restored, but the sex drive doesn't come back. The weight gain comes on with synthetic hormones because they're not replacing. If you're not replacing, that means your hormone levels are off. One hormone that's off, all the rest of them are off. It's like dominoes. If you have one hormone off, then they all go blah, 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 like that. So my doctor took my blood work. She looked to where my levels were. She prescribed a bioidentical cocktail in capsule form just for me. What I need is not what you need, even if our levels were exactly the same, because it's about stress levels. So you can't take what I'm taking. You've got to take what you need to take. When she said, I'm just going to put these back slowly. I said, I'm feeling awful. Give it back. If you know what I'm missing, give it all to me. And she said, I can't. I said, why not? She said, because you'll go crazy. Literally, you cannot mess around with hormones. That's why you're feeling crazy, because you don't have them. I'm going to slowly wean you back. It took several months, but I started feeling relief immediately. She, every couple of months, would up the dose on one, lower the dose on the other. We would talk about my symptoms. Has the itch gone away? Are you sleeping through the night? Are you sweating at night? Is your sex drive coming back? Is your thinking coming back? Is the bloating going away? It was blessed, really. It was truly blessed to have my life restored to me. I am now at balance. I cannot tell you. I feel metabolically, that's internally, like I'm 35 years old, and in fact, internally I am, because when you replace the hormones you've lost in the aging process, you can mimic your prime. Now, some people say to me, well, is that natural? Is that natural to mimic your prime? And I say, we are, as a society, altering everything. What is hip replacement natural? Is heart surgery natural? All these things we're doing, if we're going to alter ourselves as a society, then we have to alter all the way down. And you can have your hips replaced, but if your hormones are off, you're not going to be a very happy person. Having balanced hormones is blissful. And when you're young, you make a full complement of hormones. And that's why you feel so good, and you can jump out of bed, and you have energy, and you have a strong sex drive, and your skin is clear, and your heart's beating right, and your thinking is sharp. As we lose our hormones, I can only make an analogy to a plant. You take a house plant. You decide you're not going to water this house plant. It'll live. It'll live for a while. It'll still be standing there living for a while. But in time, it's going to start to dry up and look a little worse, and look a little worse, and look a little worse. And one day, you walk into the room and the plant has gone, and it keels over and dies. That is what happens to us. In layperson terms, hormones are the plant food. Hormones are the life-restoring nutrients to your organs. That's why young people don't get the diseases that older people get. The doctors that I talk to in my book, The Sexy Years, all say that just about every disease that we experience as we get older is because originally hormone imbalance was there. And so when the hormones aren't present, that's when you start having heart problems, because there's no hormones feeding your heart. Hormones are what keeps your heart pumping. Your major hormones and your minor hormones. It's what keeps your heart pumping. It's what keeps your brain working. Every doctor that I interviewed in my book said the greatest protection, if you only took hormones for this reason, to keep your brain working and to keep your heart beating and to keep your heart healthy, if that were the only reason, it would be worth taking bioidentical hormones. See, that's the great thing. You reach this age and the angst of youth is gone. You pretty much have your big purchases made. You pretty much have raised your children. You know what your career is or what you want to do with your life at this point. Maybe it's just do nothing. Maybe it's, make things that you love. Maybe it's, and sell them. There's so many things to do with this life. And if you've got a whole half of life left, you have to start thinking about this passage very seriously. But when your hormones are balanced, and you look at your husband with that look in your eye, and you are the instigator, I'll tell you, it puts your marriage on a track that hasn't been on since those early days of new love and intensity. And that's what it gets like. It is a magical time of life. I'm not lying in bed worrying about what my career is going to be and what kind of house I want to live in and worried about the kids. My kids are grown up now. They've got kids of their own. They've started their own lives. I get to have my life back with my husband, and it's like we're dating again. It's like it was 35 years ago. We look at each other and we're having fun. And the reason we're having fun is because we're both hormonally imbalanced. Yes, yes. Your husband will benefit so much by your reading this book. He's not going to go out and buy a book about hormones. That's just the way men are. But if he sees you coming back to life, like a tulip that was wilting from lack of water, and now you're coming back to life and blossoming again, he's going to want what you're having. Men lose their hormones too over a 10 to 12 year period. And most men think that they're doing fine as long as they can have erections. I'll tell you, loss of testosterone is not about erections, although that is the last thing to go. But what goes first is their vitality. Notice your husband sleeping more than usual. Notice that he doesn't have the kind of pep and energy and get up and go he used to have. Notice that he's kind of not very excited about life. He's still having sex. He still wants sex, but so he's thinking everything is fine. But I'll tell you, I noticed this with my husband. I was now balanced hormonally, and I'm looking at my husband who is falling asleep in the morning. He's falling asleep in the afternoon. While I'm making dinner, he falls asleep in the chair. After dinner, he falls asleep, and then he's ready for bed. And one day I said to him, I am watching you fade before me. You see what's happening to me. Why don't you go to my doctor and see what's going on with you hormonally? So we went. And his testosterone was so low, and yet it wasn't affecting him sexually, so he thought everything was great. I'll tell you, since he's been on testosterone replacement and DHEA, which they noticed in his lab work that he was low in DHEA, he's like a different guy. He takes 2 steps at a time when he's going up the stairs. He doesn't sleep during the day. He's on the phone all the time. His brain is sharp. He went to his heart doctor. His heart's pumping. The doctor said, boy, you're like a 35-year-old. It is a magical thing. When I first went into menopause, I didn't understand my body, so I went naturally to my gynecologist. That's where all women go. And my gynecologist said, well, I'm going to put you on synthetic hormones. And I said, well, I really don't want to be on synthetic hormones. She said, why not? And I said, well, I don't want to take a drug. I would rather do this naturally. She said, well, I can give you black cohosh or yams or yam extracts, which I tried, which I personally found useless. They do nothing to replace hormones, so that it didn't even diminish my symptoms, because my symptoms were so bad. I went to the next doctor, and I said, I want to take natural hormones. And he said, why? And I said, because I don't want to take a drug. I want to take something natural. And he patted me on the back, and he said, the drug companies know best, dear. Which I thought to myself, you old fool, which I know is not very kind of me, but it's a difficult passage, and you want answers. Here's what I discovered. Our doctors, and I am a proponent of Western medicine, our doctors get approximately 4 hours of instruction on the hormonal system if they turned up for class that day. Now, again, I don't want to be in a world without Western medicine. I don't want to be in a world without pharmaceuticals. When you need them, you need them. But if a doctor's specialty is not hormone replacement therapy, natural bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, then they should tell you that, so that you can go find a doctor who is well-versed. And that is what I had to do. I went from doctor to doctor to doctor until I was ready to tear my hair out. Everyone wanted to give me synthetic hormones. Watch the women on synthetic hormones. They are gaining weight. They are getting bigger and bigger through the rear end, through the hips, through the neck, everything. You know why? The body is so brilliant. Because you're not replacing the hormones, there's nothing feeding your bones, there's nothing feeding your organs. So now your bones are starting to lose their density. You're losing bones. Now your body says, gee, you're losing bone, you know what I'll do for you? I'll pad you up, so at least if you fall, you might not break one of those now getting brittle bones. See what's happening to us. So that's why so many women are walking around with hip replacements, with knee replacements, with bones that break. I knew a woman who died from osteoporosis. It's the most horrible death. Upon her death, every single bone in her body was broken. Every time they lifted her, they'd break bones. It's awful. Natural bioidentical hormones protect your bones, protect your heart, protect your brain, keeps you from gaining weight, restores your libido to what it was in your prime. Your brain is operating at full speed, sharper than ever, because you've got wisdom now and you've got perspective. When your hormones are balanced, you're happy. With hormonal imbalance creates a PMS kind of state that never goes away. Remember when you used to have PMS and it was one morning or two days of the month? When you go into menopause, it's every single day. You're not yourself. You don't feel like yourself, and you want to apologize all the time, but you also want to yell at people because you're just feeling so crazy inside. I don't feel like that anymore. I love my age. I am loving menopause. What woman have you ever heard say that? When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, the first thing that every doctor said to me was, you have to give up your hormones. And then they said, we're going to do the surgery, then you will have radiation, then you will have chemotherapy, and then you'll take the after drugs. The after drugs that they presented to me for breast cancer after I did research was crazy to me. You get a 10% better chance that you won't get a reoccurrence, but a 40% increased chance that you'll get heart attack, stroke, pulmonary embolism, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, etc., plus you'll be depressed possibly for 5 years. And I thought, depressed for 5 years? I'm still young. I don't want to be depressed for 5 years. So I said to all my doctors, I will not stop taking my natural bioidentical hormones. Each one of them said, why? I said, because it is my belief from the research that I've done and the cutting-edge doctors that I've been with who understand natural bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, that it is an environment of balanced hormones that prevents disease. So for every reason I can think of, I am replacing the hormones that I have lost in the aging process with an exact replica of what my body is making, and I cannot tell you how great I feel. And it is the fountain of youth. Everybody's been looking for the fountain of youth. It's not all the things you read about in magazines. It's hormones. Hormones keeps the elasticity in your skin, keeps you firm, it keeps your bones strong, it keeps you in shape physically. Because your bones are strong, you can work out and you can get in great shape. And when you're having regular sex, you look better. You just do, because you feel better. Sex is one of the greatest gifts we've been given, but at this age, most women say to me, I can't feel anything. And that's what happens when your hormones are gone. You feel nothing. It is the greatest thing that you can do for yourself. This is what I've done. This is why my life is the greatest it's ever been at this age. I've been programmed all my life to think you hit 50 and it's all downhill. I can't wait for what the next 10 years is going to bring me, and the 10 years after that. It just keeps getting better and better. Now, here's the thing with taking natural bioidentical hormones that you're not going to like. But you know, as with everything in life, you have to give to get. So, when you are doing this properly, and this is the proper way to do it from the doctors that I have spoken to, and everything that I say in my book is backed up by these doctors. You must mimic normal physiology. If we are going to replace the hormones that mimic what your life was like in your prime, that means that you will have a monthly cycle. That means that you will, on every day of the month, take your estradiol, which is the name for natural bioidentical hormones, and then on days 1 through 14, you add to that your progesterone. Again, bioidentical progesterone, exact replica of what your body makes. At the end of that 14 days, just like when you're in your prime, you get a period. Now this is where women go, oh, I don't want that. All right, you don't have to have that. If you don't want that, here's what you get. Memory loss, no sex drive, itchy, bitchy, sleepy, weepy, bloated, forgetful, and all dried up. That's the trade-off. So you either have a monthly period and feel great and sexy and frisky and sharp thinking and a strong pumping heart, or you can go back to the 7 dwarfs of menopause. It's up to you. I'm not telling you what to do. Now, I was very curious, how am I going to feel at 80 years old or older having my period? So I interviewed women who are on natural bioidentical hormones. I interviewed one woman in the book. She's 83 years old. I said, tell me about your day. She said, well, I get up in the morning. I get up at 7 a.m. She said, because at my age, you can fall in love with your bed. She said, I get up in the morning, and as I'm making my bed, I put on either Roy Orbison or the Beatles. And I dance while I'm making my bed. She said, and I get myself moving that way. Then I go and have my breakfast, and she eats a healthy breakfast. She eats fruit and cereal and she drinks a cup of real coffee every morning. And then 2 days a week she goes dancing, and she said, and the other 3 days a week she goes to an exercise class. She said, you know, my friends can't remember anything. I have to drive them everywhere. They go to the dancing and they go to the exercise, she said, and it's a social thing. She said, they don't get it. She said, I go because I know that I want to keep my bones strong. I want to stretch. She said, I watch my cat every morning, and every morning my cat stretches. She said, there must be something normal about in nature. She said, so I stretch and I breathe and I exercise. She said, I usually go out for lunch with a friend every day. She said, at the end of the day, I come home and I take a nap. She said, I don't usually sleep, but I watch Dr. Phil. And I like to just take a rest in the afternoon. She said, then I have a healthy dinner, and often I go to the movie or visit friends in the evening. I said, so, sounds like you're having a great life. She said, I do, and at night, she said, after dinner, I usually go to my website. She said, I have a website. Nobody reads the stuff I write, but I don't care. It makes me feel good to get my thoughts down. And I said, okay, so what about sex? You're 83. You're taking these hormones. Do you have a sex drive? She said, yes. I said, really? She said, yes. She said, I held a torch for my husband for so long that I'm not having sex. She said, but I have sexual feelings. She said, I love to hug and kiss the men. And she said, if I find a man that is compatible with me, she said, I would love to have sex again. And she said, the great thing is I have the desire. I said, wow, that's pretty inspiring there. She said, so I said, what about having your period? You're 83 years old and you have your period. She said, you know what? It goes with the territory. She said, it's the trade-off for having this incredible life that I have, that the quality of my life is so much better than my friends who aren't on hormones or who are on synthetic hormones. She said, it comes with the territory. Does any woman like to have her period? No, she said, but it's no big deal. It comes, it goes. She said, at one point, she said, I gave up my hormones because they're expensive. She said they're about $65 a month for natural bioidentical hormones, and crazy, most insurance won't pay for it. That's the crazy thinking. They'd rather pay for synthetic hormones, which you eventually will probably get the ailments of senior citizens, but they won't pay for the natural bioidentical. So about 65 bucks a month. She said, so I gave them up, because at my age, you don't have a lot of extra money. She said, within 2 months, I started feeling so horrible. She said, I thought to myself, I will do without other things. I'll go out to eat less. I'll do without other things than to give up my hormones. So now here's an interesting thing. We think hormonal imbalance is the domain of middle-aged women. I've now explained to you that your guy has hormonal imbalance too, and that he eventually will zero out too, but by the time he does, he'll have been grumpy for so many years that you won't connect that he's lost all his vital hormones with this grumpiness. By that time, you're going to be so sick of him, you just hope he shuts up and goes in the corner. Okay, but I interviewed young women too, women in their 30s, early 40s, women in their prime. I cannot tell you, one after another, they were saying to me over and over, I have no sex drive, none. I do it because, you know, he's got to have it every once in a while, but really I could be looking at my watch or eating an apple. And I said, really? I said, what's your life like? And I'm encapsulating a whole bunch of women that I talked to. Every one of them said, well, you know, I've got my job and my career, and I've got my house to take care of, and I've got my kids in school, and I'm on this committee and that committee, and I'm den mother and I have to bring up the cupcakes, the homemade. I always make homemade cupcakes, and I give dinner parties for my husband. I have committees that I belong to, and I'm so busy. And then I come home and I make dinner, and then I put the kids to bed, and then I get into bed with the kids and read them the story and rub their backs, and by the time that they fall asleep, I'm asleep too, and then I wake up. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I go and get into bed with my husband, and my husband's already asleep, and in the morning before he even wakes up or I wake up, their kids are already in our beds. And when is there time for sex? And frankly, these wives are hoping that sex doesn't happen because they have no sex drive. This is an awful thing that's happening to our young women. Why don't they have a sex drive? I'll tell you why, that I found in my research. Stress blunts hormone production. So you are in a stressful period, and you're running, and you're doing, and you're the perfect, and you're giving the perfect everything. That means that you're blowing out your hormonal levels. There's no time for things to get balanced. When your hormones are out of whack, one of the first things to go is your libido. Women who go to their gynecologist, who are complaining about life, and I don't feel well, and I have no energy, and I have no sex drive, and they complain enough that the doctor, who wants to make them feel well, it's all done from a good place, will put them on an antidepressant. Do you know how many women in this country are on antidepressants? It is shocking. But here's what happens with an antidepressant. Okay, they do feel better on an antidepressant, but the sex drive goes away completely, gone. There's a sense of lethargy. There's a sense of being disconnected from the world. They're kind of happy, but they're not living. Dr. Reese, in my book, called it, they have lost the vibration of living. That's what an antidepressant does. An antidepressant should be only used in the most extreme cases or for temporary short-term use. Again, I am not anti-pharmaceutical. I do not want to live in a world without pharmaceuticals. When I had cancer, I took the medicines they gave me to get me through the surgery and the pain and all of that. But when you don't have to take a drug, we are better off not taking a drug. I see in the future, and this is what these doctors have said to me, in the future, that all of us, at any age, will be having hormone replacement, raging hormones in teenagers. How many teenage suicides could be rectified by taking a blood test, seeing where their levels are, and if your teenager is acting out terribly, you see where the hormone levels are. It could be as simple as replacing the hormones that are out of whack right now. These doctors also said that for women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, they are now starting to recommend hormone replacement on a temporary basis while they're so stressed. Take a blood test, see where their levels are, replace what the stress has caused them to lose, work with them on stress management, talk to them about priorities, talk to them about the importance of the intimate connection with their husband, and if you don't have that, where it will lead down the road. Women in menopause, it's a natural, it's a given. And then finally, your husbands. When you have a husband who is losing his vitality, who just doesn't have the get up and go he once had, we all chalk it off to normal aging. But I'm telling you, having seen the difference in my husband, who is now on natural bioidentical hormone replacement of testosterone and DHEA, and in some men they also, it's HGH, there are many different things, everybody is different. When I see the difference in my husband, I realize that your husbands can have that too. But they're not going to buy this book. You are going to buy this book. But there are chapters in there about them, and you will be reading this to them. Again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I've done, what these other women have done, what these cutting-edge new doctors are saying. And these are not naturalists or herbalists. They don't know. These are Western-trained, accredited, Harvard Medical School, some of them. These are cutting-edge doctors. This is the issue that I have right now with doctors. If it's not your specialty, please send us to a doctor who has chosen to specialize in natural bioidentical hormone replacement. Don't guess. To me, going to a gynecologist who hasn't chosen to specialize in this is like going to a dermatologist for a heart transplant. You know, it's not enough just to know where the heart is. You got to be well versed in it. So it's not enough to know what the hormones are. You got to be well versed in it. I've spent hundreds of hours. I've gone to so many doctors. I've talked to so many doctors. It's all in this book. Not only in this book is the approach to natural, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, but once you get that together, looking at the second half of your life and asking yourself, is this the life I want for another 50 years? Because you're going to have another half of life left. And that's something that each of us has to really think about. Is life what we always wanted it to be? It's not too late to change. If I said to you today, if you're 50 years old, you have another 50 years to live. Think about it. Is this next 50 years, do you want it to be exactly what this last 50 years was? If it is, great. That means you made great choices. If it isn't, you have time now, and you're going to have the brain power, and your heart's going to be strong, and you're going to be in a good mood, and you're going to be able to think about what it is you want to do with the next part of your life. If they are going to keep us alive through technology 20 to 25 years longer than ever before in the history of man, then we have to approach these last 20 to 25 years differently. Now, what about these reports that the media is giving to us that is so alarmist? Those reports and the Women's Health Initiative are all done on synthetic hormones, right? Synthetic hormones. And synthetic hormones do not replace the hormones you've lost in the aging process. So therefore, you're taking away the symptoms, but you're doing nothing to replace. So what you have is imbalance of hormones internally, okay? That's when disease is ripe, right? So in order to prevent disease, so that we are like young people who don't get the diseases of aging, you replace exactly what you need. Now here's the other thing. You can take bioidentical hormones incorrectly. Too much is not good, too little is not good. So you don't want to just say, well, what are you taking, Suzanne? I'll take what that is. This is what I mean about an exact cocktail designed for you through your lab work. But it goes further than that. She sees, the doctor here, she sees where your blood levels are and starts you on a dosage. Then it's up to you to work with your doctor. So it's not as easy as a one pill fits all. It's certainly not as easy as synthetic. Not at all. One pill, hot flashes and night sweats go away. And if that's all you want, then by all means take it. But if you want to be healthy and you want a quality of life, if you want to feel 35 again, and in many ways look better than you've ever looked, because wisdom looks good on your face. And if you're hormonally balanced, your skin looks good. You don't wrinkle so much. Your weight stays right. You got to eat right. You got to exercise. This age takes handling. This is not for sissies. It is not as easy as when you were young that you could drink and smoke and stay up all night and eat potato chips and all that. That's a recipe for disaster at this age. But I eat great. I eat a lot of food. I exercise, not fanatically, but I exercise. I do something every day. I keep my hormones balanced, and I'll tell you the payoff is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, these flawed reports, that's what I call all these reports that the media has latched onto, that hormones promote breast cancer, hormones promote ovarian cancer. Synthetic hormones do not replace, so therefore you're hormonally imbalanced, and the best way to get any disease is to have hormonal imbalance. So read the Women's Health Initiative. You can go to SuzanneSomers.com. I have it printed up there, or there are many places. You can go to Nexus or wherever you want to go. And the Women's Health Initiative conclusively stated that those women on synthetic hormones were having higher incidences of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure, and a host of other ailments that people expect to come with middle age, but it's synthetic hormones. Nobody has done these studies on natural bioidentical hormones. So you say, well, how do you know that there's been no double-blind random studies and tests done on bioidentical? Well, there hasn't been on all the cholesterol-lowering drugs that everybody's taking. There hasn't been studies around long enough for any of these drugs that we're taking. All I know is that I'm not taking a drug. I am replacing what I've lost with an exact replica, so there's no drug in my body saying, what? And all I know is I'm feeling great, and this is what I'm basing my health, my cancer, my happiness, my last 20 to 25 years, my marriage, my physical appearance is all based on taking these natural bioidentical hormones, and you couldn't pry them away from me. When I was taking birth control pills, I forgot them all the time. I'll tell you, I never forget my natural bioidentical hormones. And here's how you take them. Once a cocktail's prescribed for you, you take them twice a day to keep a steady stream going through your body. I take mine around 7 or 8 in the morning, and I take mine around 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I try to take it at approximately the same time every day to keep a steady stream of hormones coursing through my body at all times. And so I never have highs or lows. And if I do get off a few hours, this is how sensitive we are. Say I forget and I don't take it till I get home from someplace, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Somewhere in those hours, between 10 and 2 in the morning, I get a little bitchy. And that's because I'm starting to lose hormones. Hormonal imbalance will create bad moods, hot, tempers, things that I don't like. As soon as I feel that I'm irritated at something for no reason at all, I think first to myself, did I take my hormones? Usually it's because, oops, I'm about 3 hours late. So you want to take a steady stream. In this book, The Sexy Years, I have accounted for the fact that maybe you live in a city or a state where nobody, your country doctor, nobody in your hometown knows anything about what I'm talking about. And that's more likely to happen than not. I have a chapter in here of what you go to your doctor who knows nothing and ask him for what he wants. What kind of blood test? And I give you, and it's not me, I had the doctors lay this out for me, what levels you should be looking at, and you can self-administer. But if you can afford it, and you don't have it in your neighborhood, your state, your city, save your money, do without something, drive, fly, make an appointment to a doctor who specializes, or one of the doctors that I've interviewed in the book, The Sexy Years. Make an appointment, because you only have to go once. The rest is all done through blood work and phone calls, and you will work with this doctor for the rest of your life. Recently I saw a documentary on people who were 100 years and older, who were still vibrant and living. And they were all asked, what is your secret? How have you managed to stay alive so long? How is it you're still working? How is it you're still in the game, so to speak? And without exception, every single one of them said, you have to learn how to manage your stress And you have to learn to adapt to change. You know, by the time you're 100 years old, most of your friends are gone. They're dead. Usually your spouse is dead. Some of your children are dead if you live that long. So you got to not fall apart with the life events. You have to learn to adapt to change. And I thought that that was very telling. So manage your stress. Learn to adapt to change. Be open to learning something new. Read my book, The Sexy Years. See if this is something that you think could work for you. I told you the pros, I've told you the cons, I've told you what you get, I've told you what you have to give up, I've told you what happens when you're on bioidentical replacement. There is a period to deal with, but I'll tell you, I'm just like the 83-year-old woman. It comes with the territory. It actually keeps me connected to my femininity. It makes me feel young inside. I am enjoying this passage. If you want what I have, read the book and decide for yourself if this would work for you. It is worth every penny. It's worth doing without something that you'd like to have this, because what are we if we don't have quality of life? To feel the way I feel is absolutely blessed, and it's allowed me to be more creative at this age than I've ever been in my life. I have wisdom, I have perspective, coupled with balance and happiness and an even temper. And I must say, a frisky sex life. You can have it too.